This is the April 5th, 2022 meeting of the Acushnet Public Library Board of Trustees. We are being audio taped and videotaped, and we do have a quorum. First item of business on the agenda today is the Secretary's report from March 8th. Does anybody have any clarifications or questions on those minutes?
No.
If not, you need a motion.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the budget.
Yes, so you have the April 5th budget snapshot. We have just about 3 months left for fiscal year 22, and we are 75% spent out in total, which I think puts us right on track. Operating is nearly spent out as expected. And then bumping back up to salaries, we're 71% spent out in total. You'll notice that the technician line is a little behind the other lines, and obviously that's because of the turnover we've had this year. I still have to really sit down and crunch the numbers because it will also depend on when we bring in technician 2 to fill that current vacant position, which hopefully will be in the next few weeks. But we will be turning back, I would say, approximately $7,000 from that technician line at the end of the fiscal year. But I will have a better idea on that once the position is filled. And the longevity won't be spent out either. Just as a reminder, one of the staff members who qualified for the longevity left, but you will see that line go down a bit more this year, this month. So by the next meeting, because my anniversary is this month, so you'll see that drop. But other than that, unless you have any questions, I think it's pretty straightforward, I hope.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? No? Okay. Need a motion?
Motion to accept the budget. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to old business, we have an update on the FY23 budget.
So I'm not sure if you all have watched any of the selectmen's meetings or the finance committee meetings, so hopefully I'm not repeating too much, but I'm going to try to recap what's been happening. As you know, the requested amount to make our children's room assistant position full-time was removed from the budget. We discussed that at the last meeting. So the Board of Selectmen did approve our budget without that $16,557. Last week, the Finance Committee met with the town administrator to review the budgets that have been approved by the Selectmen, and the purpose was to also approve, for the FinCom to also approve those budgets. When it got to the library's budget, our liaison, Eric Chu, asked if the chair, Mike Boucher, would read the letter that Jen wrote to the Finance Committee. We discussed that at the last meeting. She wrote a letter to the Finance Committee as well as the Board of Selectmen. But Eric asked that letter be read, and then some discussion took place regarding the budget and regarding this position specifically. The town administrator did point out in that conversation that the library refused another part-time position in lieu of going for the full-time. And I just want to clarify that for everybody, because yes, when he mentioned it to me, I did refuse to put in another part-time position. If refuse is the right word to use, it seems a strong word, but we've discussed in the past, which is why I said no to this, that we already have 8 part-time staff members here. We're a staff of 10. I don't think you'd find any other library of our size in this area with only 2 full-time staff members and 8 part-time staff members. I don't know if you can kind of imagine that. It's very difficult to schedule 8 part-time people. The scheduling here sometimes is a nightmare for me, because especially one person takes vacation and it throws the whole thing out of whack. But that's what happens when you have part-time positions, and I accept that that's a part of my job, of course. But to add in another part-time staff member, especially when we're talking about one position. We're not talking about another library tech position. We're talking about, or we're not talking about making a library tech position full-time. We're talking about making the children's room assistant, which is essentially our children's librarian. We're talking about making that position full-time. That position should not be two part-time people working separately. That's, you want that to be, for consistency, for patron benefit, you want that to be one person. So that is why I said no. It's essentially, again, our children's librarian. Every library in this community, in the South Coast community, has a children's librarian. We do not. Our children's room assistant is the closest we have. So that should be, whether or not it's part-time, full-time, it's one person's position. And what we want ultimately is a full-time person doing that job. I feel like if I had said, oh yeah, sure, we'll take a chance and add in for another 19-hour part-time person, what kind of message does that send to the person who is in the position currently, part-time, who I'm trying to get a full-time position for? It also sends a very odd message to that person. So just to clarify, because there was no clarification offered as to why I refused, fortunately our liaison knows my feelings on it, and so Eric did comment and say that that's not appropriate for this position, but I wanted a chance to say on record too why it was refused. If refused is the right word, that seems like a very strong word. And also, just for the record, I did suggest that I would be willing to talk to the board about not filling the current vacant Tech 2 position if that Tech 3 position could be made full-time. And I was told that wasn't an option. So, because I would be willing to lose that current vacant position to get this full-time position that I feel is so needed right now. And that was just disregarded without me even having the chance to come talk to you. So I also wanted to point that out. The FinCom did table discussion and voting on the library's budget. They want to wait so instead of approving it, they tabled it because they want to wait and see what happens with some other budgets, or some other departments that have been asked to make some cuts. So they're going to review our budget again at a later time. That doesn't mean that the Board of Selectmen would support it regardless, but I have to say it was really nice to know and to hear while watching the Finance Committee meeting that we have some support from the Finance Committee. I respect the Finance Committee greatly. I feel like the Board of Trustees that hired me instilled that in me, that the Finance Committee, these are people who do really important work for the town, and excuse me, sorry, fiddling with my pen cap. Thank you. And I, really respect whatever their decision is, regardless of the outcome. But it meant a lot to me that they tabled the discussion. I think it, spoke well for the library. And I also finally just want to say, one of the budgets that's being asked to have some cuts is the school department budget. And coincidentally, they're looking for a school media specialist for the elementary school. A school media specialist and a children's room assistant is not the same position by any stretch of the imagination. At its core, is it a children's librarian? Yes. That's what they are at their core, but it's two entirely different positions. And I feel that position for the elementary school is as vital to the elementary school as the position that I want here is for our library. The bottom line, those positions will benefit the students of Acushnet Elementary School and the children of this town. And that's what we're here to do. So I really don't think it's either or, and I kind of feel that's how it was being discussed a little. So I just wanted to state that I don't feel it's either or. I'm a librarian. Of course I think that both schools should have librarian positions and active libraries, and I feel like that only would serve our library better as well if there were that position at the elementary school like there is at Ford. So I also just wanted to say that, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I feel really strongly about a lot of things that have been said over the past few weeks, and thanks for giving me the chance to say some of that, so thank you. And that's my update for now. Stay tuned. I'm sure there's more coming.
I'm pretty sure that the finance committee is meeting this week
Mhm.
to go over the rest of the budgets, so we should probably hear something on the finance committee. Well, it'll be aired probably by the end of the week.
Right, and normally if they meet on a Wednesday, it's normally up on YouTube by the following Thursday, the next morning.
The next day,
Yeah.
So we'll probably know something then. And then we'll have to see what happens with the selectmen.
Right.
And then if it doesn't go forward, if they disagree with what FinCom suggests, then we're to the point where it has to be brought up on the floor at town meeting,
Mhm.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Or we decide not to pursue it at this time and wait, so that's.
Right.
That's.
Okay. Well, I guess the only thing we can do at this point is to wait and see what happens.
Wait and see what happens.
Mhm.
Anybody have anything else to offer or comments or anything? No. Okay. I don't think we need to vote on anything.
No,
there.
not on that. Okay, thank you.
When did you say the meeting was?
FinCom is Wednesday.
This
It's
tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. Yes, because today's Tuesday. Yes, tomorrow. I think I lost a day somewhere. Yes, it's tomorrow, 6:30, I think, right? Yep.
Okay.
6:30. And then, like Dina said, they usually have it, they on YouTube the following day, early in the morning usually.
Okay.
And then you can watch it at your leisure. And I'm pretty sure that the selectmen are meeting.
They're also meeting tomorrow, but not about
No,
budgets, so I think it's the
I think it's
following
next
Tuesday.
week. I think it's next week for them. Next on the agenda, we have an update on the building projects.
Yes, so really great news. The pavilion is on track to be ready to go by the very beginning of May. So in hopefully about a month, we will be able to use the pavilion for programs, which is great because Melissa is looking to kick off outdoor story time on May 4th. So that would be wonderful timing if we could use the pavilion. Regardless, if the pavilion isn't ready, we'll just do story time either on the deck or on the back lawn, but we're really excited about the pavilion. And then as far as the Wi-Fi project, everything is hung and ready to go outside, which is good news. That was a big piece of the labor that needed to be done, and it's done. They still need to swap out the access points in the building, and they're waiting on a control switch that is set to arrive April 15th. So hopefully by the next time we meet, the Wi-Fi project will be complete, and we'll be able to offer really strong Wi-Fi to our patrons in the building and to anyone who's using the deck or the pavilion. So that's where we're at with that. And I think other than that, everything is pretty much status quo. It's not a current building project, but I did mention in my director's report that Air Masters had to come back a few times this month. And as of Friday, though, when the IT tech came out, seems like everything's all set now. So please keep your fingers crossed that we're good to go for a while with the HVAC.
That would be good.
Yes, it would.
For sure.
Yes, it would.
Okay. Anybody have anything on that before we move on to new business? All right. Resuming staff-led indoor programming.
So I put this on the agenda more just to get your opinion on things, or just to know that you're okay with it. I don't think you'll need to take a vote on it, but you did approve, a couple of meetings ago that we can, or last meeting, I'm sorry, I can't, time is, I don't know when that was. It was recent. You recently approved that 25 people can meet in the room, which is great. I talked about it with the staff who run programs, and that would be Sandra and Melissa primarily, and we talked about, do they want to do indoor programming? Sandra is more, I think, interested in the idea of indoor programming for small group programming. Like in 2020, for April of 2020, we had booked a jewelry maker who was going to come in and do, a jewelry program with beads, and we ended up, canceling that due to COVID, and we'd love to reschedule that at some point because we were really looking forward to having this person come in. So for something small like that, I think Sandra would be, or I know she's more than willing to do it. Melissa, with dealing with story time, and you're dealing with potentially very young kids, I think would do it, but like in the event that it poured rain and we couldn't do any sort of program outside and there was a scheduled program happening and we could put 25 or less in the room, then she'd be comfortable with it too. And I just more so wanted to get a sense with, if we end up doing this, are you okay with this? Would you not want us doing indoor programming if the staff is willing to do it? How do you, we're in just we've never experienced this before, anything like this before to reference, so I just really wanted to get a sense. I don't want to do something that then you're saying, why are they doing that? Or, other libraries in the area have been doing indoor programs, so it's not, certainly wouldn't, if we did, a couple of them, it wouldn't be unheard of, and really it would be more so for adult programming right now at least, and we'll really try to get as much use of the outdoor space as we can for kids programming. But any thoughts on that or concerns?
I don't think so. I mean, I think where masks are optional, I think that if people want to come and if they're concerned and they want to wear their masks, then they can certainly do so. Or if they want to come and don't want to, I mean, that's, certainly okay too. But I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at anyway, in the world.
And indoor, outdoors, 25 is the
Outdoor, we won't have that limit. That's just coming indoors, we would. So at least in terms of story time, I don't anticipate that at this time of year we would get more than 25 based on numbers from last summer or pre-COVID. As we get a more established program and it maybe becomes a part of people's routines and people have a little more flexibility in the summer, we could certainly bypass the number 25. So if it poured rain, I don't know yet how we'd handle that. Maybe we'd have to split it up and do like 2 sessions and people could hang out in the library until they could come in for their session, that kind of thing. We'd have to kind of cross that bridge when we get to it, I think, because that's not something people sign up for. Whereas the adult programs, more often than not, because of supply issues, people have to sign up for them. So if we're doing something like a craft program or some sort of book discussion, we'll probably have a sign up going so that we can control how many people were coming inside if we had to move inside. So I think we could handle sorting out the children's program without too much of an issue.
I think this table's a good example of, some of us are comfortable or have their own reasons for wearing masks, so I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think the people that are not comfortable with being in a group of more than
Wouldn't
25
come.
will not come.
Will not come.
Right. Yeah, I think it's perfect solution.
Okay, good. I just didn't want to move forward with it, and then you see online that we're doing something, and you're like, hey, what is she doing? All right.
And of course, only if the staff is comfortable.
Yeah.
If they're
Yes.
not feeling comfortable,
Staff,
then we shouldn't do it.
Correct.
Or
Thank you.
lower the number.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, I spoke to the both of them even as I put it on the agenda. I said, because we've kind of loosely talked about it, but I made sure we talked about it more formally to also make sure, is this something that you're good with? Because if not, then I would never want to put someone in a position where they felt uncomfortable. We've done so well for our staff, so I certainly wouldn't want to drop the ball on it now. So okay, good. Great.
I don't think we need to vote on that either.
No.
All right, we're doing all right.
We're
right
moving along. Yeah.
We're all coming to the birthday party, just so you know.
going to the casino.
Oh, yeah, let's
The last item for new business is the discussion about nominating a member to serve on a parent survey committee.
So I've kind of been talking a little bit with the staff. I also spoke with Jen last week and trying to get a sense of how to boost our numbers. I'll say that quite frankly. We're talking 1,000 kids in Acushnet public schools. All of those kids should have library cards that are old enough. You have to be 5, but most of them are 5 or older. They should all have cards and they should all be using this library in my opinion. And sometimes I wonder, and I wondered this before COVID, but now especially as we're slowly building back up, I just wonder sometimes why there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between the, not the schools themselves, but the people in town, with young children and the library. And what could we be doing differently that might encourage people to come in? Do people maybe not know our hours? Do they not have, a sense of the fact that, yes, they borrow a book, it's for 2 weeks, but it's especially with children's books, it's probably going to auto-renew 2 times, which technically means you have 6 weeks to read the book. Like, I'm just trying to figure out how we can get those messages across so that we encourage people who used the library before COVID to come back, and then also people who maybe didn't use the library much before COVID, like, here's what we offer and come on in. So we talked about developing a survey with some questions geared specifically to school-age parents. And I would love it if someone from this board wanted to serve on the committee with myself and a couple of staff members, just to get the questions outlined and then to determine like who's going to review the answers and how we're going to use that information that we get. Last night at the PTO meeting, we're at the elementary school, we did talk a little bit about, you know, perhaps administration helping us out by being willing to send the survey to parents through the principal's newsletters, or could also talk to the superintendent, Dr. Bailey, to find out if she could assist with that as well. And there seemed to be a good response yesterday at the meeting, so hopefully that would work. And then, you know, of course, we also have a parochial school in town that a lot of those kids do use the library, but if we had a way of circulating the survey to people who use the parochial school as well, not just the public school. But just really trying to get a sense of how do we boost these numbers? How do we get people in the door? How do they learn about us? We're here to provide free access to everybody in town, and we want to do that. So what could we be doing better that would encourage people to do that? Or is it, hey, you're just not interested, and if that's the case, great. That's fine. But yeah, if anyone's interested, I can't imagine it would be more than a couple of meetings, and probably fairly short meetings. I think it'll be pretty straightforward once it gets going. But
I think that's what the objective is to just try to figure out what is it? Do people think it's too time consuming to come here? Do people, I mean, people that are busy still come here. They still, you know what I mean? I can still you can look online for what you want, put it on hold, come pick it up. I mean, this is like,
So easy.
It doesn't get really any easier, but then you can come look, like, is it the hours? Is it just not convenient? Like, what is it? Or, on the contrary, if you're using the library, why do you come here? Like, why? What brings you here? Like, what do you like about? Like, is it the programs? Like, wow, let's make sure we get those back. You know, but we were just kind of brainstorming to think like, geez, you know, when Dina had said that she had gone to the schools in the 3rd grade and 70 applications and only, you know, like a handful of them have been here. Well, why? That's 70 applications that you sent home, that these parents came back. Now they know that their kids have a library card, but what prevents them from actually coming here? So
I think it might be nice. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But those of you with little kids, or even Jerry, because you're close with your grandson. But
Way too
I
close.
think, I hear you. But basically, because I think you might have a better handle on what prevents people from coming. Because I think if you're making it a multiple choice, or, you know, where you've got a specific question instead of making it open-ended, you know, if you could, you know, pose a question, is the location difficult, or is transportation, or you guys can really hone in on what would the things as a parent of a little kid would prevent you from getting to the library, and then think of all those things, and you guys are better at that than
I absolutely think it has to be multiple choice. And I know through the school they sent out surveys like about the buses and stuff like that. And if you really just put, like, if you put the first name of the child, the last name of the child, you select the grade, and then they ask you like maybe 3-4 questions at the most. It's boop, 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 submit, done. Because you're not going to get someone that's going to sit there and go, all right, let me take this survey. Because, I mean, let's face it, you get surveys like for work or something, and then you go, nah, I don't think so. Because it's just that you just don't have time for. But
I think time is the answer.
Time is the answer. So it would have to be like multiple choice. Even if it's select all that apply, it still has to be that you're just selecting.
And it's only going to be online?
Yeah, I think that was.
I mean, we could have a
plan.
paper one at the desk that we hand out when we see people come in. We could certainly do that, but we have ways of doing it, like through software we have from the network, or we could put out create it online. But we could certainly do a print version.
And the best part, I think, too, about going through the school is it really doesn't have to involve, like, whether you have one child or 3 children, you only have to fill it out once.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like, for like the bus schedule or something where it's by grade, you used to have to fill it out like however many times for however many kids you have. But this would only be like, hey, what is the purpose, or
Right.
do kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
That's the thought.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does anybody want to do that? Or, I mean, if nobody wants to, I will, but if anybody wants to do that, then,
How would the parents see it? The school will send it out to all the families? Have they agreed to that?
we
Well,
had-
that's what,
That's
we
what
mentioned
just
it
said.
just off the cuff
Put
at
it
the PTO
online.
meeting last night, so we'd have
Yeah,
to get
like
official
like
approval,
how?
but
Yeah.
we would be asking the principals to send it in their weekly newsletter.
and then
Sometimes those newsletters can get very long,
yes.
and it's hard to get to the end.
And that's
It's
why it
awful
was,
to say.
well, then maybe
Okay.
Dr. Bailey would get involved and she would
Right.
send it out, right?
Maybe
Like,
we could also do a printed version. Like, I know my son is in 1st grade. He has a folder that comes back and forth to school every day. So if it goes in the folder, maybe the parents would be more apt to send it back.
Absolutely, we could definitely do that. And
I would be more apt to, if I
they-
had it in front of me and I was like, oh, it has to go back. I'll do it right now.
especially for the younger grades,
Right.
Because
Right.
you're
The
looking at
older
a folder.
grades
The
will
older
right.
grades,
sit there.
that's going to be sitting in the bottom of
Things
somebody's
die in those
backpack.
folders.
But
Right.
That's,
Right.
But I agree. Like if you're like, I know that up even through 4th grade, I know that they have folders that they bring home. So I think maybe like especially for the elementary school, if, then
Those folders are key, I think.
absolutely, because you're looking at it just about every day. So I think you're right. So maybe printed version for, the element. We could think of something about that, and then maybe the electronic version for the middle school. So, but we did talk about they did talk about the newsletters and about how the content. It's some of the stuff is getting lost in
Yes.
there. So they did talk about that yesterday. So I definitely agree. If we stick that like in there somewhere, it's probably not going to get the visibility. So definitely. All right. Totally up to. Like I said, I'll do it if nobody else wants to do it. But if somebody wants to do it, then by all means, go right ahead. It's totally up to you.
Or 2 of you could do it.
Yeah, but it doesn't, yeah.
I'm happy to help.
All right.
Thanks, Danielle.
So.
And also, what about tabulating? Like, for instance, I think the younger families might be best, organizing and getting the questions. I don't have kids in the school system anymore. Not that I couldn't, but then you're gonna have to analyze it and collate all these numbers and tabulate them.
Yeah,
Right,
that's what
right,
we'll
right.
have to figure out.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Okay, great.
And I think if we when we look at them and get them back, hopefully it's going to be like, for instance, like what keeps you from coming to the library,
Mhm.
and we can probably do like, all this pile is ours, and
Right.
this pile is, I don't know, it's we didn't even know you could go to the library, or I don't even, what is the library? Where is the library? I don't know that we could. You never know, right?
Right.
So I don't know if it's just the fact that it's on this side of town, so people on the other side of town don't necessarily like, I gotta drive all the way over
But it is
there.
on the same street as the school.
Right, but it is, yeah. So I'm thinking, that, and we talked about that. Like, it's on the same street, but I guess the people that take the bus,
Right, wouldn't.
like the people and I'm talking like Mattapoisett Road, like way over there on that side of town, way out, figuring like, hey, if they take the bus, do parents even drive over? Like, why would you
right.
drive
Oh,
over
right.
here?
Especially north of.
Well, they did last
north
year. They
to-
were all bringing the kids to
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like, why would you?
exactly.
But why would you
Right,
drive?
but then last year, we weren't open, like,
Right.
it was just for take, so.
Yeah,
Is
so-
it just an out of sight, out of mind?
I don't know,
Like,
like
what is
what it might, what it might be, or. I can't imagine that the hours would be 'cause they're open later, so I can't really
But
imagine.
people might not know that, like,
Yeah.
that's what. like,
Absolutely.
Just
True.
trying to figure out.
Yeah.
If the survey's done online, is there a program online that tabulates it for you?
I don't know. I know
Um,
that I think they use Google Forms, but I don't know how they tabulate
Right,
the
so
surveys
we would use
from the
Google
school.
Forms. Yeah, well, we'd be doing the survey, the
Right.
school wouldn't, so whatever they use, I don't know how, but
Would
with
it
Google
matter?
Forms, no,
Right.
we would then
Right.
be evaluating what the answers are. And that's the least of my concerns with getting this
Correct.
going is
It's
about,
just
I mean, when we
getting
did
the
our strategic
information.
plan a couple years ago, we had to tabulate
Mhm.
the answers, so,
Do you have any
I don't think
idea
it
of
would
a
be too bad.
percent of how many school children use it?
not with current numbers, it's really hard to say.
What's the total enrollment of 2 schools? Do you,
Right around 1,000,
It was.
I think.
It's right about. I think they said that the elementary school is like 549, and I think I think the middle school was like 450 maybe. So right about 1,000 kids between the 2 schools. And you figure you have to be 5, so that eliminates your
Right.
preschool.
But also, we don't, when we get, people sign up for library cards, we don't know what school they go to. We don't know if they're homeschooled, if they go to the public school,
right?
private school. When we're looking at, kids, what percentage of our users have a child's card? We don't even see, I mean, some kids from New Bedford get cards here, some kids from Fairhaven have cards issued here, so it requires a little bit more research, and then also, quite frankly, I feel like we'd be using statistics from prior to COVID, because if you're looking at active cards, you're going back, a card is active for 3 years, so you're going back 3 years. If you got a card in 2019, that doesn't mean you've come here at all since 2019, so then to get into that nitty-gritty would be a little too complicated almost. I mean, I can, when we look at the CERC statistics in a minute, you're going to see that, we circulated over 3,000 children's books in March, which is almost double the amount of adult books that we circulated. So, I mean, clearly, that's, there's a lot of books being borrowed. I just want more.
Might be the same kid.
Well, and you want to be able to reach all of
Right.
the people.
Correct.
Because, I mean, what is the, I don't want to say what's the point, but really, like, why would you have a library card if you weren't going to use it?
Right. That's, I think, what spawned this was just being surprised. We've had such a great outreach with the 3rd grade this year. We've had a really great connection with the 3rd grade at the Acushnet Elementary, between visiting all of the classes and issuing library cards for those who turned in applications, and now that their Magic Treehouse projects are on display here, which is bringing those families into the library to see their projects on display. Like, we just have had a really good communication with the 3rd grade this year, and hopefully that will continue. But the question is, when you issue that amount of cards and not even 10% of the kids have come to use the cards, right, why did you apply for the card? And do you plan to come in the summer, maybe? You just haven't had a chance yet. And again, understanding totally, I mean, like Jerry, you said, time is a factor. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on parents and there's a lot of pressure on the world with COVID right now. I mean, we're all under a lot of pressure, but I think that just trying to determine, well, okay, if it's time, but did you know that we're open until 7:30 4 nights a week? Do you know that we're open on Saturdays for 5 hours? If you put an item on hold, you don't even have to buy it. You can just come pick it up. Like, if you don't know how to put it on hold, call us. We can do it for you over the phone. And if that's not working for you, what else could we, do you have any suggestions on what we could do to help?
And you don't have to be open to return it.
Right.
You can return it whenever
Right outside.
whenever you feel like it.
Is it people being worried about fines? Is the potential of a fine a barrier for people to use the library? Like, just trying to figure out, if you don't get it back in time, you're going to be, in trouble. There's so many people who will, make the comment of, oh, well, I don't want the librarians to be mad at me over this, 10-cent fine. The librarians are never going to be mad at you for a 10-cent fine. It's such an old school way of thinking. I don't even know that you have a 10-cent fine. I'm not paying any attention to that whatsoever. I am going to pay attention if, 2 years ago you borrowed 20 books and didn't return any of them, and now I'm having to repurchase those 20 books. Yeah, then I might, send you an email or give you a phone call just asking, hey, you still got those? But for the most part, I'm not paying attention to any of that on people's records. But do people have a fear of that, from their own experience, years ago, or just it's one more thing to worry about, is that how, So it's just trying to, how do we ask those questions and then get some answers that will improve our service, because that's what we're looking to do, is improve the service, you know, especially as we move further out of COVID.
All right, well, I think that's a good,
Yeah.
good way forward.
Great.
I think we have a plan.
Sounds good. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right, we have the director's report.
Yes, so just a couple of things to highlight. As you know, in the middle of March, for the Board of Selectmen, masks have been optional at the library. That transition has gone very smoothly, and you know, I couldn't ask for, throughout the past 2 years, you know, a better staff or more support from the public. So I appreciate that, and just wanted to note that. Like I mentioned, we've got the third grade with I think one more class to go after this week for Magic Treehouse projects being displayed here. That's been so fun to see them coming in and to, you know, see their work here. And I appreciate all the teachers, all the third grade teachers who are working with us on that, particularly Mrs. Aviza, who actually is the one who asked if we would do this, and it's been great. I met with the principal and vice principal over at the elementary school on Friday. Like I mentioned to you, they're also looking for a school media specialist right now. They don't have a librarian, and they were seeking advice on purchasing new material and cataloging practices. And you know, I was really excited to have the opportunity to meet with them. As you know, technically your town librarian. So that was really exciting for me. I think it was a good way to strengthen the relationship between the public library and the elementary school. We talked about a few collaborative opportunities. And you know, that relationship is a key goal of our strategic plan. So I'm really excited that this school year it seems to really be happening, and I hope that just continues. I mentioned that I was asked to serve again on the sales board of directors, representing libraries with a population of 10,000 to 24,999. I last served a few years ago, and at first I was going to say no, because I have a lot on my plate right now, but it doesn't start until July, and I think things will be hopefully better come July in terms of scheduling and staffing levels, and it just didn't seem right to turn down the chance to be, for a small library like ours, to have a voice in the network. So I said yes, and we'll see what happens. It's only for 3 years.
What kind of a commitment is it?
It's 6 meetings a year, roughly.
So that's not bad.
Yeah, in addition, there's usually 6 membership meetings. So it puts me at meetings every month, but it's only 6 more meetings a year. And, you know, occasionally to, you know, take a survey or review a document online and, you know, weigh in. But it's a fairly minimal commitment for the benefit, I think. So that should be good. Been working on that J nonfiction and J biography reading project, and you'll see on the March statistics that we discarded 629 items in March, and that's mainly due to that reading project in J nonfiction. Some of the items there had not circulated since Russell days and were moved over here in the hopes that they would circulate, and guess what? They didn't. So some of them had circ dates of last use dates of 2012, 2013, 2014, etc. So that's primarily what was let go of, and it freed up space for us to do some shifting, and I think the J graphics collection is in a much more visible spot now for kids. We're noticing an increase in circulation of those J graphics since moving them, so I think that's good news, and the project will continue as time allows. And we're moving right along with our summer reading preparations, which I'm sure I'll be speaking more about come May. And finally, with the Boston Bruins Pajama Drive, the library collected 56 pair of pajamas, and we thank our patrons once again for their generosity. Those pajamas all stay local, so they will benefit kids in the immediate area. And we're happy to have taken part in that, and Sandra does a great job of coordinating that every year. But those were the highlights, I think, from me. So unless you have any questions or comments. Our March circulation, I did just want to point out, is the highest since August of last year, so we're getting towards summer numbers, and hopefully that just continues. It's still a buildup from, we're still moving back up to pre-COVID numbers, but we're getting closer, which is nice to see every week, so. Hopefully, at some point soon, we'll be past COVID numbers, and I can stop saying that.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Been busy as usual, or busier than usual?
Yeah, it
That's
feels
even
like it this
possible?
year. I don't know how, but it does.
Lots of stuff going on. Do we have any, do we want to set the next meeting?
Yes. We're kind of limited in May, so I'm hoping that my first date sticks, and if not, well, we'll see. So the first date I'm going to toss out is Tuesday, May 3rd at 4 o'clock. It's the week before town meeting, which is on Monday, May 9th.
Sounds perfect.
I can do that.
Me too.
Me too.
Steve,
too.
Jerry?
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Tuesday, May 3rd at 4 o'clock.
We've got a lot of vacation time being used in May as we get to the end of the fiscal year, so our schedule is pretty tight, but this will be great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have anything else? Nope. All right then. Need a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This April 5th, 2022 meeting of the Acushnet Public Library Board of Trustees is officially adjourned. It is 4:45.